This is Jake Ciely, and I'm the blown ACL that ruins your football season.
Good news, everyone! Let's get dangerous.
This is so cool!
I know!
It feels so right!
It's Jake Ciely.
I'm sorry, who is this?
Nice try, Moonman! Pretending not to know! Earth's greatest mastermind!
You just made the list!
I thought you said that was a myth.
Just because it's a myth doesn't mean it's not true.
If you all blindly follow my plan, we may have a chance.
Sure, we talk about it all the time.
Really?
No, burn.
Game on, you ducks. It is week 15 coming up, week 14 recap as always. Hopefully you're in the fantasy playoffs, and if you aren't starting, you get that final win to get in there. But how about we start this week off with an apology? How about that one? An apology that the Commanders just committed malpractice. Like, honestly, I'm sorry, everybody. This is egregious. You know I've been saying it this entire season that I was dubious that Jayden Daniels would come back this year being out of the fantasy play or being out of the real NFL playoffs. Now you're possibly out of the fantasy playoffs if you started them. But that the Commanders, no reason to put him on the field. Their franchise quarterback, their franchise was the right way to put it. And they put him out on the field, not being 100%. I assume they were smarter than this. We saw the brace with maybe 90% of the elbow, but pretty much 100% overall. It wasn't his legs. It wasn't his throwing arm. And he leaves the game because he fell on it, got tackled on it, kind of more fell on it after the turnover, and then wasn't to be seen the rest of the game. And then, of course, they say he could have come back in the game. I don't believe you, .gif. Stop with this nonsense. I'm sorry. I apologize to everybody out there who started him just like me. I'm with you. I had him in my favorite league, my home keeper auction league. I started him and I'm probably going to miss my bye because of it. So I apologize. I apologize that I said, yeah, put him out there because he's Jayden Daniels. I apologize the Commanders were this stupid. But this is what happens in football. Honestly, there was a lot of surprises yesterday in general, including the Buccaneers losing at home. Sorry if you were still alive in Survivor. There's another sorry. And took the Buccaneers. Nobody saw that one coming, including the Titans. I know the Browns were always, a risky pick in Survivor, but at this point of the season, another one at home with that defense against the Titans. And then the Titans and the Saints both knock out wins this week. And hey, before we get to the rest of the fancy stuff, speaking of crazy, the Chiefs might not be in the playoffs. How about that? But anyway, more quarterback situations. And we had a lot of injuries, unfortunately. Daniel Jones, we know he's out for the year. Pretty much downgrade everybody. Probably turned to Jonathan Taylor even more than they did before. Michael Pittman saw a high target share of anybody on that team. So it hurts Alec Pierce and the excitement of starting him as a wide receiver 3 or even a 2. Michael Pittman can hold on to his value. But outside of that, Tyler Warren, you have to start at tight end. But it's basically the Taylor, Pittman, and Warren show the rest of the way, and you might not get the value, or probably won't get the value you had before that. And if Tyrod Taylor is out, all that Adonai Mitchell excitement. There's another sorry, 3 sorries to be earlier into this show. Is Adonai Mitchell, huge down game, the entire Jets, huge down game, Breece Hall included, because Brady Cook was at quarterback, and if Brady Cook is the quarterback the rest of the season, just like the Colts, downgrade everybody, and it's even worse because you probably can't start Adonai Mitchell anywhere. Not even Mechie, who Cook went to quite a bit. I wouldn't trust Mechie in your playoffs, and you have to start Breece Hall, but it might be dubious for him. Speaking of dubious again, how many dubiousnesses was that? Moving on. J.J. McCarthy, for the good side of things, best game of his career from start to finish, outside of the one quarter, so like best game, but bad news is Justin Jefferson still only targeted in the min-T percentage, and a lot of 2 and 3 tight end sets for the Vikings. So, yeah, Jordan Addison, Justin Jefferson, probably in your lineups, but they're going to continue to be wide receiver 3s because J.J. McCarthy, even his best, didn't do a ton outside of the tight ends. Addison had a decent game, but not Justin Jefferson. Looks like a big disappointment for one of the bigger losers this year, but not that anybody saw it coming this bad. On the good news, we'll move into running back. R.J. Harvey, 50 of the 74 snaps. Sean Payton is turning to him a lot. This is what we hoped for since J.K. Dobbins' injury, and we're finally getting it. And then, as mentioned in waivers last week, why Troy Franklin was a bench and potentially coming up on a drop candidate, is now it's even worse. He was 5th for the wide receivers. He was 17 routes to Pat Bryant's 29. So if Pat Bryant is out there, you can pick him up. I would wait still before starting him, but he might see an uptick like Harvey did at the end of the season because it's a Pat Bryant, is a Sean Payton guy. Sounds like at running back that Devin Achane is okay. If he's not, Jaylen Wright, for all the time that we've been waiting for Jaylen Wright to happen, looks like he'll be the lead, but we do know that Ollie Gordon will be sprinkled in, especially with some of the goal line carries. Kind of consider Jaylen Wright and Ollie Gordon two old school Raheem Mostert and Achane. Or actually, well, Achane would be Wright and Mostert would be Ollie Gordon, to give you the idea there. Woody Marks, bell cow role, but also that has to do with Nick Chubb getting banged up. Not that I'm downgrading or discounting what Marks did, but just as a heads up that Dare Ngubawale did come in as Marks himself got banged up. So Marks will be fine. Will be an RB2. He's on the Texans, which is why he's an RB2. I wouldn't be surprised if Ngubawale sprinkles in enough to keep Marks from being an RB1, even with Nick Chubb out. Bechal Tootin, yeah, he's droppable at this point as he dropped the balls and, yeah, twice fumbled. And as we saw what happened in this game, he's not coming for Travis Etienne. He's still a handcuff. I wouldn't drop him for nobody. Like, I don't know, between Dare and Ngubawale and Bechal Tootin, I'd still hold on to Tootin in case something happened to Etienne. He was always one of the more mid-range handcuffs. But yeah, that's all. Possibly moving down the list just a little bit. On the Tim Patrick excitement, if anybody has it out there. If anybody has it. Because he had a good game, but Parker Washington was out. Don't think he'll have much value as long as Parker Washington is playing. Another running back situation, Isaiah Pacheco creeping in a little bit more with Kareem Hunt, but Kareem Hunt still the goal line option. Kareem Hunt still Kareem hunting. And RB2/3, Pacheco not in the conversation as starting, but just watch that just in case they want to try and get Pacheco some more work, as again, they might be out of the playoff race, and they say, hey, let's see if Pacheco's healthy for next year, or do we need to address the running back position, which they probably will anyway, but you get my point there. Rasheen Ali, if you're looking for a deep handcuff situation, which nobody probably has rostered because Keaton Mitchell got hurt in that game. They already didn't have Justice Hill, and Ali is more of a Hill replacement, but he probably would be the first one up at this point. It wouldn't be a bell cow roll like Derrick Henry, but if Henry were to miss time, Ali would be one of the biggest chases on waivers at this point. Remember last year, look, Amir Abdullah was a top 20 running back at the end of last year. So you never know who it might be. Don't let Ali sit out there in deeper leagues. On the wide receiver side of things, the weather was a big factor in Jamar Chase, including the attention that he was given in that game. T. Higgins was just getting open. The backfield was working. Chase Brown had a huge game, as you saw. But as the Chase Brown thing, even though he had a huge game, just as a heads up, it continued. Samaje Perine split about 1/3 to 2/3 of Chase Brown. Perine could be a desperation RB3 flex, depending on your league, and depending on what we think the game script might be. Chris Godwin leads again. There he is for the Buccaneers. Interesting enough, though, Egbuka still got tons of targets and more than him. It's just not happening. Actually, a lot of it for Egbuka hasn't been happening since Mike Evans left. And this goes to possibly being a rookie who can't handle the top coverage. Maybe that softens a little bit more as Godwin has been doing Godwin things the past 2 weeks since he came back. If Mike Evans comes back, though, this could be a cluster for everybody. And honestly, Egbuka might kind of get left out of the equation more than Godwin and Evans because they are the veterans. Baker Mayfield knows them, and as great as Egbuka was to start this season, we could see him kind of fall into that Luther Burden, but better value, but Luther Burden with the Bears role, which let's talk Luther Burden. The uptick wasn't there. It wasn't a huge uptick. He was actually third in routes behind Zacchaeus getting the big bump and DJ Moore being the lead option. But again, that schedule, as seen yesterday, is prohibitive for that entire team in the passing game. So even with no Roma Dunze, looks like we can't trust any of the Bears. There's another, I'll give you a fifth sorry. Or was that four? Whatever it might be. I'll give you another sorry for having them as wide receiver 2/3s because the uptick did not happen. And Caleb Williams looked good at times in that game, and it still wasn't there for all of them because all it made is Zacchaeus. Yay. Brown situation, Isaiah Bond, another one to stash or grab in deeper leagues because the Browns had a couple injuries. Cedric Tillman left with a concussion. Malachi Corley left with a concussion. David Njoku got hurt. So Shedeur Sanders' best game of his career and looked pretty good in that one. It was the Titans, so it's relative. But going forward, they're throwing more to Dylan Sampson in the backfield, which, hey, if you need a running back, but also Isaiah Bond. We know he has the talent, and if you were on the team like I was, where I thought he was the better wide receiver coming out of college than Matthew Golden from Texas, then you know what he could do if he has the number 2 job and grabs it and keeps it for the rest of the year. The Packers side of things, Jayden Reed is back, which was great to see, and he was already the number 3 option A lot of slot work as expected, but if you caught the Fantasy Pros podcast, I talked about that I'm not concerned of his effect on Christian Watson, another great game. But Jayden Reed is going to fill the Tucker Kraft void, especially out of that slot and over the middle of the field. So Jayden Reed, now that he's healthy, I expect him to be in my wide receiver 3 rankings next week. And Jack Bech time is finally here for the Raiders. They said he was going to get more opportunities. Don't know why it took this long, but he did, and he actually led the receivers in receiving yards. So Bech, a potential wide receiver 4 down the stretch, although we are relying on Geno Smith / Kenny Pickett, so probably not unless we see him really flash and the schedule is not great. But hey, they do get the Giants in Week 17, your championship game. We'll see if you might be able to stomach that at that time. And then, tight ends as we get out of here. Pat Freiermuth, a decent one if you lost Zach Ertz or if you've been searching for tight ends, depending on what happens with Oronde Gadsden tonight on Monday Night Football, if it's another dud for him. Freiermuth because Darnell Washington might be out, and only if Darnell Washington is out, because Arthur Smith will Arthur Smith us at all times. Watch Jonnu Smith have 120 yards and a touchdown, but it is Pat Freiermuth if Washington is out. And like I said, hopefully you got the W. Hopefully Daniels hopefully the Commanders didn't screw you over, and you're back on Wednesday for the long form ranking show and the recap of all the news and injuries that you need on Friday. Discord on Thursday, 10 a.m. over The Athletic, and again 11 a.m. Discord on Sunday morning to get those last minute decisions in. And hopefully you skipped it. If I said Daniels will be pushing the top 5. Stupid Commanders.